coating of sigillata, and it's really easy to make, and they used to sell it here at Claymaker, but it's just the idea of using a really fine particle clay by mixing what we have now as a powder here as OM4, and mix it up, and some of the heavier particles will settle out. Some water will kind of float to the top, and in the middle there's a layer there that looks like this. It looks something like this, and so we pour off the excess water, and we get this, and then we maybe mix in the rest, the heavier particles with our clay or whatever. But the fine particles allow smoke, like in the raku process. This part right here that's black is unglazed and it's coated with terra sigillata, so it's a little bit blacker, and it has a better sheen than what you typically get when you raku a piece with no glaze on there. So, but the other great thing about putting the terra sig on there is that it allows fuming, and there's several processes of getting color by fuming metals, and actually a lot of organics give off different hues of color. Sheep dung will give you an orangey kind of color like this. Pit fire is another way. So I think I'm going to start with pit fire because it's pretty much the most primitive firing technique. So this piece was thrown on the wheel. Somebody had asked me to make them a udu or something like that, and then this one wasn't big enough, so we got him a bigger one. We threw him a bigger one, and I didn't even cut the hole on this one. But I decided I would coat it with the terra sig and fire it, and in a pit fire. So pit firing is basically we're digging a big pit, and could be, 10, 20, 30 inches wide, and it could run the length of 100 yards, depending on who you do it with and where you do it. But usually, typically the pits were pretty small, and because the sigillata will grab the smoke, and if there's something sitting on here, it'll mask, it'll keep the smoke from getting into it, and kind of give you some highlights like that. And this is one fired with copper carbonate inside the kiln with rock salt. So a real basic, mix, and then wood, different degrees of wood as far as kindling, some branches, all kinds of, right up to 2x4s, 4x4s, whatever, logs. And it just burns in the pit 5-6 hours. Then we cover it up and let it all cool down. The next day we open it up, we find all kinds of beautiful pieces. We call it Christmas morning when we go in there, because we have no control over how these pieces are going to come out. So it's kind of neat to get them out, especially the more red you have on there is really nice. And this little piece right here, and I think this is the only one that was Saggar fired in a constructed Saggar that we do up at Blossom Hill Crafts. We'll create a bin, and actually on a car kiln we'll roll it inside, close it all up. I create the bin with kiln shelves, one on the back, 2 on the sides, 1 in the front, and then a couple on top. Put sawdust, copper carbonate, rock salt, and as those things burn, they give off smoke, the blackest smoke, and some of the copper, the reduction in here was much heavier, so we got a nice red. And this one kind of lighter. So, but I love the fact that that terra sigillata picks up a lot of those, just the little, actually look like out in the galaxy to me. It kind of looks like star constellations, and sometimes we see faces in here. One time I did a big bottle like this, and it had the Taco Bell, the little doggy. He was right here. You can see him plain as day. So that's the Saggar Fire. It's kind of the same idea as this, but kind of created artificially. And a lot of fun, a little more control, a little more predictable. Let's go with this one. This is horsehair. Has anybody ever done horsehair in here? Okay, yeah. And the terra sigillata allows that horsehair to really get trapped in there. And I think this one was actually Saggar fired, but it didn't come out quite the way I wanted to. You could see some of the, and then I just refired it. And a lot of these pieces get refired several times because the processes are a little unpredictable, and I'll find something, I go, I don't really like that. I'm gonna refire it and try putting this on there, putting that on there. So this one was just horsehair. We heat, in this process, it's usually heated up to anywhere from 1200 degrees to 1700 degrees. You can put pieces in with your raku pieces, take them out, and as they're cooling, somewhere in the process, you'll be able to put a piece of horsehair on here, and it'll actually stick and burn and leave all these traces. It looks like bacon, but it doesn't smell like bacon. So, but it's kind of fun. People really get excited about being part of the process and doing the horsehair. It's really kind of neat. This is a piece that I did two processes on. Obviously, horsehair was the last one I did, but I had fired this one, and it's a little stand that I make out of clay, and I'll even demonstrate that later on. But this one right here was fired in what we're now calling burrito firing. So it's even the same idea as this, taken to this, taken to this. This is the same thing. And what we'll do is we'll put some, in the burrito firing, the one difference is that we put the sigillata on there, then we coat it with ferric chloride. And I don't know if anybody worked with ferric chloride, but we were spraying our pots with it when they were hot, and it was giving us a great effect. But it also was putting out this noxious gas that if you ever got it in your face, it felt like you just got maced or something like that. So, and it's not good for you. So we found out that if we just coat it on top of the terra sigillata after the sigillata has been bisqued once, that we could paint it on, spray it on, or whatever, and then wrap it in foil, and that iron in there will give it color differences because the foil can be really close to it. The foil has wrinkles in it, so it kind of gives it like a nice marbling look to it. Let's pass that one around. So but inside that foil, we'll put a few pieces of horsehair, or a sprinkling of sawdust, just to give a little smoky atmosphere inside there. And this one was done the same way, except for when I pulled it out, I sprayed it a little more with ferric chloride. So, of course, that's going back into that, making that gas that you don't want to breathe. So you always have to be careful with that. But and then I threw some sawdust right on the piece when it was outside the kiln. You can see some black little spots on that. You can see the horsehair on there. But again, the terra sigillata under it allowed it to grab all those colors and have all that little stuff happening with it.
What clay are you using?
You could do this with most any of the clays that are high fire, but raku sculpture clays work the best. I use raku 412, which is like a very tough clay as far as pulling out of the raku kiln. It takes a lot of thermal shock, and for me, it just if I make a piece and I spend a lot of time on a piece, it helps that it's not going to crack, you know.
Who makes that?
IMCO? IMCO is right here. It's the 412. And they have it here at Claymaker. This piece was wrapped in foil, well, coated with the terra sigillata first, then wrapped and then painted with ferric chloride, and laid down on this side, fired, pulled out of the kiln, took the foil falls apart, and as soon as it falls apart, that's when you know your pot's done. That's when you know the burrito's done. This one was taken out, and I don't know if you guys can see, but right there, pretty much in the middle, I had laid a turkey feather. And so it's kind of, the turkey feathers and ostrich feathers do some great stuff as far as they'll kind of melt right on the piece, kind of like the horse, same idea as a horsehair. Again,
About 6 hours in a pit fire.
this one?
Yeah.
This one was in a wrapped up with the foil in a raku kiln for about 40 minutes, 30-40 minutes. Yeah, so it's kind of neat. Comes out quick. You don't have the big pit to dig. You can do it in your raku kiln with foil, your regular foil that you use for wrapping your leftovers. This little raku piece was just fired Thursday, I think I did it. And I put terra sig on this part because I knew I wanted it to kind of look the same as what I had here on this part. And I had put sigillata on this after it was bone dry. And so this kind of matches it. Glazed this with a copper luster and then fired it on a chip. And the reason I say fire it on a chip, if you guys have raku'd before and you're taking little stuff like this out of the kiln, it cools down so quick that it's hard to get a good color, good reduction. So on that little tip will help you fire, whether you're firing little things that are going to be jewelry, anything that will cool really quick, smaller pieces. You want to keep them hot. You fire them on a thick chip, and you can pull the whole thing out and put it in the reduction barrel. Again, the piece was coated with terra sigillata. I pour the glaze on. You can kind of see how I'm just hanging on to this, and most of the glaze goes back into the bucket, but some fingers run down. I just kind of like the idea of the glaze in its liquid form, kind of helping me with the design, creating its own little pattern. So this piece right here was kind of, I put the glaze on it, wiped it off just to see what it would look like, and I kind of like the fact that it's a little bit grayer and it kind of picks up this white and black, which appears to look gray right there. I like taking the feet off of most of the pieces that I do. You'll see I just trim the foot off and make one of those little stands, which I'll do in a little bit. This one, same thing, fired on a chip, terra siged, bisqued, and then I pour the rainbow mat on there. So I imagine some of you do raku. Yeah. The sigillata just makes it look a lot finer and gives that nice dark area of your pot a little more sheen. So are there any questions about these ones that you see here?
We're talking about using sheep droppings for
Yep, yep. You can use it. You can use the sheep dung in pit fired or Saggar fired. I don't use a whole lot of it because I don't know that many sheep these days. So, but the things that I do use are the sawdust, copper carbonate, and rock salt mixed together, and then the horsehair. And the horsehair usually will come on afterwards. I could take this piece right here and reheat it up, and try and keep it in the raku kiln in a reduced atmosphere, and then throw horsehair on it. And I find that the horsehair with some of these other type firings really gives it a organic stone-like quality that I love to make it look like nature as much as I can. It's 2 parts water, 1 part OM4, and 1 tablespoon of sodium silicate. And that's if you're making like in a 5-gallon bucket, you know. So you figure you got maybe in a 5-gallon bucket you'd put 2 gallons water, 1 gallon, 1 tablespoon, teaspoon, anything around there. Sodium silicate. Yeah.
Teaspoon or tablespoon?
What's that?
Teaspoon or tablespoon?
Either one will work. It's like that whole thing is a very forgiving thing. And the sodium silicate just keeps the particles in suspension. It's, what do they call that? A huh? Whatever. Deflocculant.
Is there a difference between putting it on green versus after this?
There is. I'm gonna go ahead and do it right now. I'll put it on this piece right here. In the ideal, the greenware should be bone dry. This one's not because I was doing it yesterday, trying to finish it yesterday. Let's see.
What coil body you use? I think I asked you before.
MCO 412 on this one. But most of the high fire glazes that they use here work. The raku formulated glazes for thermal shock work best because, and I've actually started using the smooth sculpture that Claymaker makes, and it's really nice. Really nice. It's nicer than this. Okay, so I kind of centered it. The slip brush will work, but not as well as these cheaper ones. Paintbrush will work. The thing I like about these are that they don't absorb as much as a slip brush, so I don't have to worry about putting it on there and then drips coming off, or I don't have to worry about it as much. I know Akio used to do a pit fire. You still do that one? Is it Pescadero?
No, Sunset.
Concord?
Sunset Beach?
Oh, Sunset Beach? Real exciting stuff, huh?
How do you keep it from dripping?
This brush doesn't hold a whole bunch, so pretty good about not drip.
Isn't that a problem if it drips?
You know what? It can be a problem, but usually what I do, as soon as I see a drip, I try and chase it down as quick as I can. If you make 1 or 2 drips, there's going to be spots that are a little thicker as far as your finish, which might make them a little shinier, but it's not too big of a problem. If you have drips all over the place, then some of those drips might be so thick that when the when the pots fire, it could be so thick that it kind of wants to come off of the piece.
So how many coats are this is about third now?
This is about the third coat here, and I'll do anywhere from 3 to 5 on bisqueware. And this could be like this is a bunch of bags that I found somewhere, but the plastic from cleaning the cleaners works great, and you can see it's a nice smooth finish, but as soon as I start rubbing it, it gets a little shinier. Can you guys see that? And it doesn't take much. Oh God. The shapes that I really like to use for the alternative firing techniques, like the Saggar, horsehair, and all of them. I don't know if you guys noticed, but they have a lot of surface area. They're not like a bowl. They kind of almost close back up. Like this one especially, great for Saggar fired or pit fired. Let's see, is there any other alternate fires that I'm not thinking of? Oh, well, the ferric chloride sprayed pots, but not so crazy about that anymore because it just hurts your eyes. I had it once blow back on me. Doesn't feel good. Another thing I do is, in some of my high fire stuff, I carve. I'll take a shape like this and I'll carve, and I'll put a coating of slip on it. Kind of like, I don't know if any of you were over at Joe's workshop earlier, but I'll put a slip on the top of it and let it dry up a little, and then I will take a needle tool and carve designs through it. And that's another nice thing, because I don't know about the rest of you folks, but sometimes glazing just frightens me. I don't know how much it's going to melt, you know. And I really like the organic quality that a lot of these have. For me, I can look at a piece that has like that taller one right there. It's like I'm really trying to figure it out, you know, what's going on there. I know it's not just a blue glaze or a red glaze, but what it is, it could take me forever to figure it out, which interests me. Okay, did anybody count that? Is this about the third or fourth? Also, you could, if you wanted black, if you wanted monochrome, you can just do straight black. And I guess this is kind of like the idea of shining shoes or something like that.
Anything else on that? And let's say you it would just turn out black.
If you took it out of and put it inside of
That black shiny that would make
yep, if you put it inside of a reduction barrel with newspaper, leaves, whatever, anything that burns, sawdust, yeah.
and to get that burnished look, you just use the bag, you don't do anything else.
Yeah, because back in the old days, they used to use a spoon, a rock, but you'd sit there like this for hours. You saw how long that took me right there. The only other thing I think I'm going to show you, as far as that is, I'm going to throw a quick little pot here and then kind of show you what tools I use on the exterior to create a finish that's fairly smooth to begin with. And I also want to show that you could take a surface that's not smooth and coat it with the terra sigillata and get good results, whether it's black pieces or the Saggar fired pieces or the pit fired. I was listening to some tapes the other day and it was talking about this the Sophia, this energy that came from outer space. And I said, so I go, I want to make something that looks like it came from outer space. This Sophia lady, or Sophia, some people say. So I took a piece of clay, about a third of a bag, just chopped it off the top and started throwing it back and forth, and it stretched. So once I got it stretched out and it kind of went flat a little bit right here, I said, I think I can work with that. So so I took that and let it set up for maybe a full day, so that when I came back and picked it up, it was a solid hunk of clay. Her face wasn't on there, and but it would hold its shape. Like if I went like this, it wasn't going to go brrr. So as soon as it could hold its shape, then I took it and cut it in thirds and started hollowing it out. Just leaving the about, as thick as pottery should be, 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch. Put it all back together, let it sit another day. So if you don't want to start messing around with it too much when you just put it back together. If you use this technique, there's other techniques you can do to create something like this. Just telling you how I did this one. But this creates a soft spot right here, so I let it stiffen up, came back, put the face on, smoothed it out a little bit, and then I still didn't like it, so I kind of sanded it. So this surface is not smooth like that, but I'll show you what happens when I do put the sigillata on it, even though I don't really know what happens because I've never done it before. But I'm thinking it will make a nice surface.
Can you explain one more time did you throw that on the wheel or did you?
No, I threw it on the table.
Okay.
Like tossed it. I tossed it. Maybe that's a better word.
So it was a solid, just
It was a big hunk of clay, yeah.
slab of clay,
Yeah,
and then you carved it out.
yeah. I took a bag and cut it into thirds, and I actually made 3 of them because.
It was like a big log.
But as you start throwing it, it'll make its own shape, flatten out.
Okay.
One side will get, bigger. So
And then you cut it into thirds, hollowed it out, scored it back together.
yes. And that was the first one. The second one I did, and I just started working on these pieces last week. The second one I did, I cut it lengthwise because I didn't like the fact that I could still see my seams. So we'll see how that one comes out.
And how are you going to display that?
This piece, that's a good question, but I try to leave latitude in most of the things I do. Like, I don't know if you can see that right in there. I might put it on a stand so that'll be right just like this with a little square stand maybe. It also has a hole right there, so if I want to if I, my thoughts, part of my thoughts were to create a whole series of these and where I can hang them on the wall. I was out in Carmel a couple weeks ago and I saw these dolls all hung on the wall and I said, and then I went and saw the sculpture and this is like nothing like either of the two, but I used the ideas. So, and Carmel's great for that. So you can see after the first couple passes, it still doesn't have much of a shine to it. I guess because I sanded it, probably has, it's a lot more porous. So if you have a piece and, you know, whether it's a pot or a sculpture, and it's not right, you know, the surface isn't to your liking, you can sand it down. I just use regular sandpaper for this. Put the terra sig on there. You can start to see down here, it's really starting to shine up. Not satisfied. Not satisfied? Put another coat on. And the question was asked earlier that can you put this on bisqueware? And I said the answer was yes, but you can't do it like this. You can for it to work on bisqueware, one shot, you got one coat. My goodness. You got one coat, maybe two coats. If you go more than that, because the piece that you're putting it on has already been fired, and this has not, this is going to want to shrink a lot more. That means it might do something really cool, like the mud flats, where it gets cupped up and cracks apart and kind of looks cool, I think. Or it could flake right off. So now it's starting to look better, I think.
What would that do if you just put it in a regular, like, scut kiln and low fired it?
Low fired?
Yeah, like what if you just did like Kono 4 or something?
Well, with this clay, it would probably look like there's a white clay, a white thin coat of terra sigillata over. This clay is very red once it gets bisque. Not like cinnamon or terracotta, but a paler, like a peachy terracotta color. So that's what I would think. If you did it with like the other clay, then it would come out like really white looking. Yeah, it would come out white. So you can make things that look white. Once in a while I like to do that. Fire something white and then try to antique it a little bit, whether it's, you know, putting some of the faux finishes, paint, acrylics, whatever, just to make it look a little ancient. I love the ancient look. Can you guys see that? Pretty nice surface. And that surface right there is ready to grab color. So however you fire it. I could leave it black. I could paint her face with raku glaze, whatever, or just do the whole thing black. One of these other firing techniques would work with this one also. I think my idea is, I think she should be dark, you know, to make this piece strong. So think about, you know, what you're doing, how you want to do it. I'm going to put one coat on her face just to see what that, yeah, see where it was not sanded, it covers much quicker, and it's, you saw that? What was that? 2 coats right there? Maybe 2.5, 3 coats? if you put it on places that are uneven, you know, that have little details, you want to make sure you try and not let any sit in there. You blow it out so that way it stays more even. Yeah, and that worked out well. So I might even, well, that sheen looks pretty nice to me. The raku process is a lot harder than on a piece as far as thermal shock than the other methods. Because the other methods, you don't have to take them out of the kiln and put them into a reduction barrel. So you're not having that shock of coming out of a hot kiln going into reduction barrel. These ones can sit in the pit, cool down a whole day, or they can sit in the kiln like the raku kiln and just close them and leave them there, or open them up, throw some horsehair on it, and then pull it out, or leave it, put it back in there. So, but the raku ones, those are the ones. If you go like 5 thick coats on there, 6 thick coats, you start risking stuff popping off because it cools down so quick, and especially when you're doing this on bisqueware, you know. So best time to do it, if you can, is when it before it's bisque fired. Some of your stuff, if it's really delicate, you know, it's got little parts on there, you might want to do that afterwards. Like that hummingbird, I knew I was going to glaze it, so I did not put the terra sig on there when it was greenware. I usually like to just take my foot off the pedal, and I don't have to worry about whether it's going to speed up or slow down. You guys were over there with Joe earlier. He always says keep this back clean, because what happens is that clay flares out and starts moving your hand around. Thing's moving a little bit. Maybe not. Let's see. I know that I'm not going to flip this piece over. You can see that piece that I just terra siged, and a lot of these other pieces would be difficult to flip over unless I have the fancy Geffen grip, the $200 Geffen grip, but I don't have one of those. So I know I'm not going to flip this one over and trim it. What I do is, when I'm done, I'll cut it off the bat, and by that time it typically on some of these forms, when I'm throwing them, they're fairly dry, and so I just bump the bottom with my knee just to give it like that. Real low-tech potter. If I can use my knee rather than a tool, I got a free knee. So I got my bottom good. Start working on the walls.
You gonna demonstrate that shape? You just terra sig?
Am I gonna do that shape right now?
Yeah.
You know what? If I had all I'll do one close to it maybe. And maybe I'll even try and, yeah, because you guys probably want to see how to get that top closed. Okay. I'll do the best. I'll do the best I can. Okay, so right now I know that by compressing the top, it's going to make my form stronger. I'm going to make it a little stronger than if I didn't. What's your name?
Frank.
Frank? And Frank says, make that shape, which usually that shape takes a good amount of time for it to set up so that it doesn't flop. But I'm gonna try and get as close to that shape as I can. And for me, that means leaving this part right here a little thicker, so that way, just like anything, when you blow up a balloon, it stretches, you see it getting real thin. This belly part is going to be stretched out the furthest, so that part's going to want to get thin, so I'm going to leave it thick intentionally to begin with. What's that?
Joe just mentioned he doesn't, but you do.
Yes, he did say that. Joe has done fabulous learning a whole bunch of good little techniques. He and I started at least 25 years ago at City College, or he started before that, but. Okay, so right now I pretty much have this part and this part thrown how I want it. Here's the trick down here. Okay, so the difference between the way that Joe does it and I do it is I usually start out with a smaller base than his. If you look at the size of the base on the one I just terra-siged, very narrow base. And I like that tension, I like that dynamic tension. And it looks like these things would be easy to tip over, but in actuality, because they pull out in all directions the same, they're pretty stable, very stable. Okay, so now I'm starting to stretch in the middle, and I'm stretching on the right side. Joe started just on the inside, on the opposite. And I don't think he did any stretching from the top down, but I do. And, oh, I know what I didn't. A wood rib. The one that Joe says that's the best one he ever uses. Yep. Yeah. For throwing a pot this size, this rib is perfect. It's the greatest tool. Like if you get it to throw in bigger pots, then you need one of those ones that are twice as big as this, maybe 3 times. Lemon flavored water right now. Only for the second one. Come around the second one. Okay, so just like Joe said, this compresses, the wood compresses the clay. I'm going to use that stainless steel to give the smooth surface on the outside, but in between I'm going to use this wood because it'll compress it, make the form stronger. I think Joe and I came from the same school because we find all the little tricks, you know, to get around with being a great thrower. And one of the things I tell my students is, for making shapes like this, it's timing, technique, and timing. Timing is very important, and he expedites the timing by sticking that hairdryer in there. Awesome. Otherwise, you'd have to wait until part of your pot got firmer. So my idea is a little different, and I'm always going to be coming here, whereas he started it out big here. I know that because my base is so narrow, if I come out there, that it's going to want to flop down. And even that's not the end of the story when that happens. So it's well on its way right there. So from experience, I know that this shape is a pretty stable shape. I'm really not worried about it flopping down. You start going out much further than this, then yeah, you could have problems. So right now I'm using the stainless steel rib on the outside and this one on the inside. Sometimes I just use my fingers on the inside, but the stainless steel on the outside, that's what's going to give me my surface that when I put 2 or 3 coats of sigillata on that thing, it looks like I burnished it for 2 days. And that's another thing I remember when I first started. I loved that burnished look. So I would sit there with a bottle, a spoon, a rock, just trying to make it more beautiful. So if I kept taking this out further and further, and it might happen anyway, this thing could collapse. And even if it did collapse, you could take this piece, you can see the shape it has right now. And if I turn it over like that, it got a little longer, it got a little taller. So if it was actually squatted down, I would do that, flip it over, get myself another stick or another table, and somehow let it sit there and dry out. Since we didn't have that or we haven't had that problem yet, I'm going to work on closing that up. And then when you tip it back over, that's what you want to do. You want to get it going up, flip it over, and then as it's coming down, slowly put the brake on. Okay, so it might have gone out of center a little bit. I just move it back. Maybe stiffen it up with that wood. So if this was drier, I'd stretch it out further and further. But since it's not, I'm gonna hope to kind of show you guys how I close the tops in. That's the best thing when you're doing a art show or a art and wine fair. People come up and they say, "How'd you get your hands in there like that?" It's like magic. Okay, so I am putting moisture on the top of this pot so that my fingers will glide over the clay, but I'm not soaking it. And so now what I'm doing is just kind of the same idea of throwing it up, but here I'm kind of making my two hands one tool, steadying it with this connection right here, and then throwing it in towards the center.
So when you were in your studio, how long would you let the bottom set up before you finish the
I'd have a heat dryer or a torch on that thing, and then for like 3 or 5 minutes, like he has, and then I'd let it sit. Because what happens, like I heat it up on the outside because I use a torch. A heat gun would be better because you can heat up the inside, whereas a torch, lack of oxygen makes it blow out. So. Did that answer your question though? Maybe, yeah. Like if without a torch, yeah. Yeah, and then let it sit for 5-10 minutes. Yeah, then come back and mess. And you'll know when it starts doing the hula. As long as it doesn't start doing the cha-cha, you're gonna be all right. But that's another thing. People. It's not like yoga where it's like showing up on the mat. That's it. That's half of it. Well, knowing when to walk away from it is the other half in this one. Yeah. So can you see how it's kind of folding and moving towards the center? It wants to fall in. So right there I'd be hitting it with a torch, a heat gun, and all that. But you kind of get the idea. And you can see how bad it's falling in right there. And then it'd be possible like to flip it over and see how it came back out. The shape's a bit different. No gravity on it, or the gravity pulling the opposite way. Good job right there. Okay. To get a nice finish like this, like there are on all those pieces right there, the metal rib on the outside throughout the throwing process. You can alternate metal and wood. But the metal is what gives it that really. The wood has a little drag and will always leave it a little open and porous, but the stainless steel, just like when they're slicking down concrete, they use a metal trowel to finish it. The same idea here, except our concrete's moving around and it's not so concrete.
Saggar actually the Burrito correcting method, and you use the what's it called, ferric chloride. Okay, and then you take it out, and then you can apply the horsehair. Or you just have the horsehair in the taco.
Burrito. It's almost lunch. It doesn't matter. Yes. Both. You can have it in there, or you don't have to have it in there. And then yes, if you wanted to, having it in there would just create a little more. It won't create the lines. It will create some carbon in there, which will give you a little darker blushes. If you're real lucky, you'll get like this taller piece has a plumish kind of thing happening in most of the atmosphere. This, to me, this colored area right here almost looks like it has light inside of it. So, and this is where it was laying on the ground with probably some sawdust in here, maybe a few pieces of horsehair. So the thing I like about it is they're all gonna, I mean, all these pieces look quite a bit different. These two are a little similar, but they look quite a bit different, and depending on how you like them, you know, you'll figure out how to move in that direction. My roommate David, he runs a studio over at Blossom Hill Crafts, and his pieces are red, dark red, and he brushes it on. He uses a little higher concentration of ferric chloride, so those are all the things you can play with. Spraying it on, you know, I think those last couple that I brought here, I did brush on those two smaller pieces with the horsehair, but usually I like to spray it on, and depending on how many coats, it's all, you know, a game. It's a game of chances and guessing, and then the really neat thing is that, like on that one piece, I didn't give up on this piece. This piece was horsehaired first, then I didn't like it, and then I took it out and sprayed it with the ferric chloride, threw some stuff on it, and I just kept playing with it. And if I didn't like it after that, I'd take it out again, put it back in the raku kiln, heat it up again, and try something else. Spray it a little more ferric chloride, or wrap it with foil and a tortilla. I don't know. We do use organics. I love the spicy green mussels. So the spicy green mussel shells are, sometimes you'll see them imprinted in some of the pieces that I do. Yeah.
So I have a question. We were talking about the horsehair. We've done beach pit fires. Where basically let it burn down. Is there a way you could throw horsehair on a pot that's just not going to be hot enough to do the horsehair at the tail end of a pit fire? Beach one that you don't. You're not completely separate.
Yeah. That, you know what? You have to almost. Is there a metal top on the pit that you guys use? Oh, then that's good, because
The wood and
yeah, the wood.
piled on top of it.
What you could do is intermittently throw some horsehair in there and you'll figure out, you know, don't throw a whole bunch, you just throw a little, you know, 5 or 10 strands on a piece that you can see as soon as you can see it. If it's glowing orange, it's too hot. Once it's like the ashes are coming down, there's not many embers, maybe just a few, then you want to start throwing it on there. The actual temperature, I think, is about 800 or 900 degrees where the horsehair still. So we heat it up to 1700 because we're doing raku. So it takes a while for it to cool down. It takes a couple minutes, and then all of a sudden we go, oh, it's on, you know, and we start throwing horsehair on there, and everybody's going, oh, you look at that, you know. Stinks like crazy, but it's fun. It's kind of neat. We just did a bunch of them the other day, and everybody was ecstatic about it.
We're doing raku fires, and we're using cans, and we're chucking in like newspaper or whatever. So we let the flame come up, and then throw like horsehair after that, after it goes back down, and right before the lid goes on.
The horsehair is black, right?
Yeah.
If you're putting newspaper or whatever and closing it in the lid, it's all going to be black. So, right? So,
Right. Okay.
horsehair is one way and raku is the other way.
Okay.
You can use horsehair on all the other Saggar fired stuff, you know. You can reheat it up and use it. It doesn't, we haven't tried it on clear crackle. It might or might not work. I don't know. To me, I think it'd probably be really wimpy, because the clear crackle is quite a, you know, it's a lot. The sidge, though, underneath the clear crackle looks great. You can see how it got very crackly. Sometimes, I don't know if you've done raku and your pots don't quite get a good crackle, or that's pretty uniform. That's pretty, it's there. So.
Is there a group of potters that do this through Blossom Hill? Or I haven't rakued in a while. I don't have access to it.
You're gonna have to group up with us. Yeah.
I'm building one.
You're building a raku kiln? Okay, so these little stands that I make, and some of them I try and make them look like wood. Especially the ones I do high fire. I do a lot of high fire stuff. My high fire stuff is predominantly brown, earth tones. I do some carving through slips. But these little stands I've been doing for a while. And it's really just about rolling something out like that. Rolling out 3 of them. And if I want to make it, Mary Jane, do you have like a shim or a piece of wood?
Small piece of wood or?
Yep. You know what a shim is? Yeah, a shim would work. Oh, I'm going to break it though.
Oh, you want it to work. I know what a shimmer is, but whether we have one.
Really have one? A broken piece of wood will work.
Yeah, would this work?
Could probably make it work. And I find that if I try to take more time to make these things, they come out looking more contrived than anything else. So I kind of like do it real fast, relaxed, like that. And usually I take a piece of wood and scratch it all up and down like that. Take a shim, you know, there we go. All right, let's try this. So basically what I did was broke it and left a rough part, jagged part. And I like the fact that this part kind of comes in like that. Works best if you have a heat gun, torch, and you can dry it up a little bit.
Gotta steal it from Dad. It's used, sorry.
That's good. See how when I broke that off, it's kind of tapered? That's kind of what you want to make some nice, definite lines.
There's so many different ways. Now, on the terra stitch, would you actually use put a mason stain in there to put color?
Yes, yes. You know what? Typically, it does not do so well, but you can do it.
Just maybe get a little bit left.
If you're using terra stitch in a slip, like a colored slip, like real banding or whatever, if you do terra stitch first and then the slip, or you do slip and then your chowder and then
We're good. Terracage, no, she was talking about turning the terracage into something that has a little bit of color on it. One slip, regular slip, is way thicker than terracage. You can see what that looks like right there. It might look a little thick, but it's really liquid, like not even nearly as thick as milk. So anyway, once I do that, I think I might put a few more scratches in here. Last night I had the worst sneezing attack from hay fever or allergies or something. I was hoping that I wouldn't have any sneezing attack while I was here. Thinking we might have to do like Gallagher. Then just give it a little twist. You could take this one here to give it like the feel of wood. You know, poke some holes in it. If you have a like one of those little nylon cleanup brushes that you sweep off, you can make it look like the termites got to it. You can drop a little drop of liquid on here, water, and then add something that could look like a branch. And again, the same thing, if it looks like it might have been broken, you want to make it look like something, use a little stick like this, blow dry it a little bit more. Here, you can pass this around, you can look at that. We got about 5 minutes. Any last questions?
And then you just score them together. Score the three together.
Yes, just lay it. I usually taper them. Like most trees are tapered, you know, as they go up. So I taper them and usually put the thinner part on top, score. That's the trick right there, is because one's on top of the other and you got to figure out which is where and which goes, you know. But I'm sure you guys can figure it out.
That terra seed, when you mix those pots, you have to let it sit for several hours, or you just...
Yep. It's best if you let it sit at least 24 hours, 48 hours is even better. If you just let it sit 2 days, you get good stuff. Are we good? Okay. Thank you.